for our science lessons. My name is Ernest Atto Bentel. Kate, in the previous lesson, we looked at how substances change state. And today we are going to look at another interesting topic. Kate, the topic for today is on cyclic events. So, Kate, the topic for today is on cyclic events. And Kate, before we move to today's topic, let's mark the homework that you were given the last time. Let's mark the homework. 1. Mention 3 states of matter. Mention 3 states of matter. And the 3 states of matter we have solid, we have liquid, and then we have gas. So the 3 states of matter, we have solid, we have liquid, we have gas. 2. Explain 2 ways matter can change state. Explain 2 ways matter can change state. And then, Kate, we looked at freezing. And we said freezing is a state at which liquid turns into solid. Freezing is a state at which liquid turns into solid. And we gave an example as water. When you freeze it, it becomes ice block. And then 2, we talked about melting and thawing. And melting and thawing is the state at which solid turns into liquid. Kate, we said melting and thawing. And when we say thawing, iced products or anything, something becomes solid in the form of ice, it thaws into liquid. But other objects like chocolate, butter, melt. So ice thaws and other objects melt. So, Kate, these are the answers to the homework that you were given the last time. I hope you all did it, and I believe you had all the questions correct. Now let's move to today's topic on cyclic events. Before then, let's look at our lesson objectives. Okay, it's by the end of the lesson, you will be able to 1. Explain what cyclic event is. And then 2. State 2 examples of cyclic events and their time periods. So the first one, we are explaining what cyclic event is. And then 2, you state 2 examples of cyclic events and their time periods. So, Kate, I believe if you go through the lesson with me, you'll be able to achieve all these objectives. Now let's start the lesson. What is a cyclic event? Kate, it is an order of events that is repeated again and again. It is an order of events that is repeated again and again. So if you look at the diagram that you see, we have 1. From 1, it moves to 2, then it moves to 3, then it goes back to 1, 2, 3. It goes back to 1, 2, 3. Kate, that is what we call order. So you see that we don't jump from 3 to 2 and then to 1. Look at the direction of the arrows. So from the green, where the 1 is, the arrow points to 2. Then from 2, it will point to 3. And then from 3, it will point to 1. That is an order. So if it goes through 1, 2, 3, then it starts from 1, 2, 3 again. And it goes like that. And that is what we call cyclic events. An order of events that is repeated again and again. Kate, remember that it follows an order. So when I'm counting numbers, I cannot start from 1, move to 4, and then come to 6, and then come to 2. No, it must follow an order. So from 1, we go to 2, then we go to 3, and then we start from 1 again, 2, 3. We start again from 1, 2, 3. And that is event, order of event. So, okay, that is what a cyclic event is. Now, okay, let's look at some common examples, some activities that you do that you also go through this cycle. Let's look at one cyclic event at home. One cyclic event at home. Okay, first, you wake up in the morning. Then when you wake up, then you go to school. Then next, you are back home. And then you sleep. You go through this event every day from Monday to Friday. You wake up, you do some house chores, you take your breakfast, you go to school. And then when you go to school to learn, you close from school, you come back home, you do some house chores and learn, then you sleep. And then you wake up again, go to school. It follows that order. And that is what we call cyclic events. It follows that order. Okay, let's look at another cyclic event at school. When you reach school, so at school, what happens? You sweep, and then after sweeping, you go to assembly. After assembly, you go to the classroom to learn. Then after lessons, you close from school. Then the next morning, you come to school again, sweep, go to assembly, lessons, close from school. It follows that order. So, Kate, you see that it follows an order. When you reach school, you don't go for lessons, and then after some minutes or hours, you go for assembly, and then you go and sweep, you come back to your lessons. No, it follows an order. So when you reach school, you sweep, then you go to assembly, lessons begin, and then after lessons, you close, and then you go home. The next morning, you come and follow the same pattern or the same cycle. And okay, that is what we call cyclic events. You start the event and then you end it. And then you start again and then you end it. You start again and then you end it. That is what we call cyclic events. So it is an order of events that is repeated again and again. It is an order of events that is repeated again and again. Okay, let's go to some real examples of cycle or cyclic events. The first one is the hands of the clock. It moves in a cycle. So you see the image of the clock here. From 12, it will move to 1, 2, 3, as you see it moving, 4, 5, and then 6, up to 12 again. And then it will move from 12 again and then go through the same cycle again and again, again and again. So you will have 12 o'clock in the afternoon, you have 12 o'clock in the night, and then you will get the same time again and again. So you see that the hands of the clock also moves in a cycle. Kids, in dealing with the clock, when it is 12 o'clock in the day, how do we call it? 12 o'clock in the day. Kids, remember that any time it is 12 o'clock, whether in the day or in the night, it means we have spent half of that time. Kids, we have 12 hours in a day and we have 12 hours in the night. So if it is 12 o'clock in the day, we say it is 12 noon or 12 midday. The midday means that we have spent half of the day. Most of the time people write 12 p.m. 12 p.m. is wrong. When it's exactly 12 o'clock, as you see on the clock, exactly 12 o'clock, you call it 12 noon or 12 midday. That means that that time is telling us that we have spent half of the day. Half of the day. That is why we call it midday. And when it is 12:01, then you can start to add the PM when it is 12:01. But when it is exactly 12 o'clock, we say it is 12 noon or 12 midday. So when your dad or your mom tells you to go and check the time, and you go and meet the clock, the handles at where you see, all of them are 12. We say it is 12 o'clock noon or 12 o'clock midday. But when it is 1, 12, 1, 12, 2, 12, 3, then you can add PM. So when it is 12 o'clock in the day, okay, we say it is 12 noon or 12 midday. That is why after 12 o'clock, the greeting changes to good afternoon. Good afternoon. That means that we are after noon. The time is after noon. So when it is exactly 12 o'clock noon, then the greeting becomes good afternoon. So Kate, remember that. And when it is 12 o'clock in the night, that also means that we have spent half of the night. The night starts at 6 p.m. and then ends at 6 a.m. or 5:59. So when it is exactly 12 in the night, we say it is 12 midnight. Don't say 12 o'clock a.m. When it is exactly 12 o'clock, as you see, then we read that time as 12 midnight. But from 12:1, 12:2, 12:3, you can add the a.m. So Kate, remember that when it is 12 o'clock in the night, we say it is 12 midnight. Good. Now, Kate, let's look at another example of cyclic events, and that is day and night. So, Kate, day and night also occurs in a cycle. So, the occurrence of day and night is also cyclical. So, we have day and then we have night. So, Kate, when day comes, the night follows. If you see the image there, you see that day comes, night follows. Day comes, night follows. Day comes, night follows. And this continues. And that is an example of a cyclic event. Day and night is also an example of cyclic events. And in every 24 hours, a cycle is complete because we have 12 hours day, 12 hours night. 12 hours day, 12 hours night. Okay, we are saying day and night also is an example of cyclic events. Let's look at how day and night occurs. Okay, you see the sun here. You see the sun here shining. And you see the earth also rotating over there. So the part of the sun or the part of the earth facing the sun is what we call day. You see that that part is bright, where you have the day. So the part of the earth facing the sun is what we call day. And the part that is facing away from the sun is what we call night. Kate, because the earth is rotating, you see that the earth is going round. The earth is going round. The earth is going round. So at a point in time, some parts will be facing the sun. And those people there will get day. And then at a point in time, that same people will get night because the earth is not still. It is always rotating. And Kate, it takes 24 hours for the earth to rotate on its axis. So you will face the sun 12 hours and another 12 hours you'll be facing away from the sun. So because the sun is going, the earth is going round, the part facing the sun, you will get day, and the part facing away from the sun, you will get night. And that is how day and night occurs. If the earth were to be still, you see that that part will get day forever, and the part getting night will also get night forever. But because the earth is rotating, we share the day and night, and that is also cyclical. Okay, let's look at what we do during daytime, what we do during daytime. And daytime starts from 6 a.m. and then it ends at 5:59 or 6 o'clock. So during the day, Kate, we go to school to learn because the sun gives us light to see. So you see the kids here learning because the sky is bright and you can see whatever that you are doing. So that is one of the benefits of daytime. You go to school to learn because the sun gives us light to see. Children also play during the day. So you see the kids there playing. We normally play during the day, whether you are playing ampe or you are playing football or any kind of play. So children play during the day. And then traders go to the market to sell during daytime. Traders go to the market to sell during daytime. So you see people selling pepper and then other foodstuffs. And I believe your mom or your dad also goes to work during daytime. And then farmers also use the sunlight during the day to dry their farm produce. Farmers use the sunlight during the day to dry their farm produce. So what you see there, they are drying cocoa. It's not only cocoa that we dry. Some also dry fish, as you see on the screen. Some also dry fish, use the sun to dry their fish. Some also dry cassava, and it can be used for konkonte. Yes, they dry it in the sun during the day. And then some also dry pepper, as you see on the screen. So farmers use sunlight during the day to dry their farm produce. And then kids, plants also use the sunlight during the day to prepare their food. So you see the plants there busily preparing the food. So plants use sunlight. When you look at the plant here, you see that the sunlight is here. And the leaves are attracting the sunlight. And they use this light to prepare their food. You see the sun provides heat to the plant. The same way when you are cooking, you also use heat. The sun also uses heat. So I love the cooking of that plant. Yes. So they also use sunlight. Now let's look at what we do during night time. What we do during night time. Night also starts from 6 p.m. and ends in the morning at 5:59. And during the night, people learn during the night. You see the boy here learning. Kate, why is the boy using light to learn? When we were talking about day, there was no light because the sky was bright. But during the night, we experienced darkness. So the light or the lamp there, whether it's lamp, some also use candle. And these provide source of light. And the guy is using the lamp to learn. So the lamp here is providing a source of light because during the night we experience darkness. Some traders also sell food during the night. You can get cocoa, you can get wache, you can get akra kenke during the night to buy. You can get this kebab and the rest during the. So some traders also sell food during the night. And then Kate, we also rest our bodies during the night. We also sleep to rest our bodies during the night. Good. Kate, let's look at the last cyclic event. That is dry and wet seasons. Dry and wet seasons. So you see that in the year, you will experience dry weather and then rainy season will come. Dry weather, then rainy season will come. So dry and wet season is also an example of cyclic events. So dry and wet season also occur in cycles. As you see the diagram, from dry you get to wet, you get to dry again, you get to wet. Dry season follows wet season. The seasons occur every year. So Kate, remember, dry season follows the wet season. The seasons occur every year. And Kate, what brings about the seasons, the dry season, the wet season, the dry season, the wet season? The earth revolving around the sun brings about the changes in the season. The earth revolving around the sun brings about the changes in the season. You see that the earth revolves around the sun. The earth spends 365 days, that is a year, to go around the sun. And going around the sun helps us to experience these changes in the seasons. So remember that the earth going around the sun brings about the changes in the seasons. Okay, so let's look at dry season. Let's look at dry. Look at how dry the land looks. Dry season is a period of little or no rainfall. There's little or no rainfall. So that is the dry season. It's a period of little or no rain. So look at how dry the land is. During dry season, we also experience Harmattan. Harmattan occurs. And this Harmattan starts from December, that is Christmas time, through to January. We normally call the Harmattan northeast trade winds. Northeast trade winds. So it's normally, we normally experience that during some parts of the dry season. And the dry season starts from December. This Harmattan comes from December through to January. When you come to the southern part here, Kate, we have more than one dry season in a year. We can have 2 dry seasons, can have 2 rainy seasons. But when you go to the north, they experience 1 dry season and then 1 rainy season. And when you take the Harmattan, it comes during one of the dry seasons, and the actual time is from December to January. And Kate, what happens during the Harmattan? The air becomes very dry. The environment becomes very dusty. And then you see people's feet. When you see the feet, you see that yes, the feet lacks water. People's mouth gets some openings here. And sometimes you even see blood coming out of it, because the weather becomes very dry. And that is the time people really buy shea butter for protection. Because if your body looks dry, you become so pale. So during one of the dry seasons, from December, that is from Christmas, up to January, we experience Harmattan. Very dry. It's a very dry wind. And then, Kate, during the dry season too, the weather becomes hot, dry, and dusty. So look at even the car coming. Assuming you are walking on that dusty road, look at the air pollution that you will experience. Look at the air pollution that you will experience. So, Kate, the environment also becomes dusty. The soil becomes dry during the dry season, as you see. See here, the soil is dry. And then we also see bushfires in the dry season. As you see, we normally experience bushfires. Now, Kate, let's look at something about the wet season. The wet season. This is the season in which we get heavy rainfalls. It is also called the rainy season. The rainy season. And Kate, if you come to the southern, we experience heavy rains from April, May, June. Heavy rains, we experience it from April, May, June. There are some, after April, May, June, we get some dry weather and then the rain starts again. But the heavy rainfalls, we experience it from April, May, June. That is what we call the wet season or the rainy season. And then during the wet season, there is much rainfall. As I said, we get much rainfall during the rainy season. And then farmers also grow crops during the wet season. So you see the farmers here growing their crops during the wet season. So you see that there are pools of water where the farmer is. But when we were doing the dry season, you saw how dry the land was with crabs grow crops during the wet season. And then, Kate, we also experience floods during the wet season. We experience floods. So look at it rained and look at how the whole vicinity has flooded. See, yeah, we normally experience this, and we experience much of this in Accra and sometimes in the north during the wet season. So kids, gradually we have come to the end of the lesson on cyclic events. Cyclic events. And we said that cyclic events is an order of events that is repeated again and again. It's an order of events that is repeated again and again. And we gave examples of how you go through some of these events at home. When you go to school, to some of the events you go through at school every day. We also looked at the clock, that the clock also moves in cycle. The clock also moves in cycle from 12 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Then it comes back to 12 again, and then it starts. It moves in cycle. And Kate, as we said, the cycle is in order. The cycle is in, so from 1 you go to 2 before you go to 3. You don't move from 1 to 3 and then to 2. We also looked at day and night. That day and night also happens within 24 hours. We get 12 hours day, 12 hours night. And this happens every day. We get day, then we get night. We get day, then we get night. So it moves in cycle. And we looked at some of the things we do during the day, that we go to school, we play, people go to farm, and some of the things we do at night. People sell food, we learn during the night, and then we also sleep during the night. And then lastly, we looked at dry and wet season. Dry and wet season. During the dry season, there's little or no rainfall. But during the wet season, we experience heavy and light rainfalls. And during the dry season, sometimes you get little rainfalls during the dry season, but the environment becomes dry, hot and dusty. And in one of the dry seasons between December to January, that is where we experience harmattan. That's the northeast trade winds, harmattan. And then during the wet season, farmers plant their crops during the wet season, and one of the disadvantages is that you also get floods when it rains. You also get floods when it rains. So Kate, you have come to the end of the lesson, and before we go, as usual, let's take our homework. 1. What is a cyclic event? What is a cyclic event? And then 2. Give 2 cyclic events and their time periods. Give 2 cyclic events and their time period. So if you say day and night, what time do day and night occur? That is what the question is asking. So give 2 cyclic events and their time period. And then the first one is what a cyclic event is. So kids, we have come to the end of today's lesson on cyclic events. I believe if you went through the lesson with me, you will understand it better. Make sure you also do your homework. And until we meet again, this is your teacher, Ernest Atto Benson. Bye-bye.